Welcome back to the podcast. Mr. Sean Ginsburg is here, and we're going to be talking about high-ticket sales. We'll talk about business growth. Now, Sean has collaborated with Grant Cardone, with Tai Lopez. He has extensive experience in real estate, digital marketing, and coaching. Sean has consistently helped businesses close significant deals and drive revenue growth. And to get to this level of success, sometimes you have to transform, evolve, grow, adapt, strengthen the muscle both inside and out. So Sean will be telling us what he's learned, what he's done, what he can do to help us serve us in this moment in time when we say, well, I've come so far. Should I quit? Should I give up? Should I become a better person? Should I pursue that deal? Should I take that calculated risk? Well, yes, you should. Yes, you should pursue your dreams. Sean is here to help us out. So Sean, glad to be speaking with you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate this opportunity to share my story and hopefully give some valuable content away to our listeners.
And we have the same goal, right? We have those aligned interests. I'm here to do that for you as well, to give you this platform to tell us what we need to know. And so as far as you and where you're coming from, did I leave anything out in the bio, or what should we know about you just right off the bat, first impression?
Right off the bat, the first impression, I should not be here talking to you guys today, right? I was in high school. I was the all-star wrestler, lacrosse player, the guy that everyone knew, the athletic dude, right? Who had it all. Right? Sports were who I was. It's basically, they gave me purpose, identity, and discipline. And then it came crashing down. I got expelled from high school. Right. So it was basically, I was done. Everything I worked for, my team, my future, the respect I'd earned, all of it was taken away. So I felt like I'd lost everything that mattered. Right. It was all ripped out of my hands. And I'll be honest, I was spirated. I was angry. I was ashamed. And most of all, I was lost. But this is why I start here, because when here's the thing that you need to know about rock bottom, right? It forces you to look in the mirror. And one day I'd ask myself a question: is this how my story ends? And that became my turning point. And I realized I had two choices: stay the victim or become the hero of my own life. And I decided to take all of that energy, the pain, the frustration, the anger, and channel it into one thing: building something better. And that's when I closed myself on the hardest sale I've ever made, which was the sale to believe in myself again. So
very nice and very inspiring. And I'm proud of you, even though I just met you. And I like this idea that you have to close yourself, because it's so true, right? Like, even up until a few years ago, whenever any of these ideas like salesmanship came up in conversation, I'd be thinking like, oh, well, that's some other industry, right? That's like used car salesman. That's like a telemarketer. But then you think about the ways that we play tricks on ourselves, right? Like, I was just reading just this morning in some sales book about how, like, you might say like, hey, I've got this software for you. And they like pile on all these features. They say, well, I've got all these needs, kind of forcing you to like go and chase them. And then if you address all the things, you've overloaded them and they've set you up that way. And if you only address the most important thing, you left other stuff out. But then I thought, like, we kind of do that to ourselves sometimes, right? Like, I can't even do this one simple thing, right? I can't contact this one person because all these things I'm piling up. And so I think that maybe we self-sabotage ourselves and without realizing it. And we think that we're being smart. And it's like, you just need to take some action. So, I mean, tell us about your journey in clawing your way back. What did you discover on the way back up? What should we know?
Yes. So it's such a beautiful question, because that experience taught me one of the most important lessons in my life, right? No one's coming to save you. Like, if you want to win, you have to close yourself first. The most important sale is you. Like, and that's what we're talking about today. Like it's just not how to close deals. It's how to close yourself on taking action, even when the odds are stacked against you. Right. So really, it's sales don't start with your prospect. It starts with you, right? You can't sell anything if you're not sold on yourself, your product, your mission, right? Back when I was rebuilding my life, I had to close myself every single day. Sean, you're capable. Sean, you're worth it. Sean, you're going to win. If you don't believe it, why would the customers believe it, right? They won't either. So I'd say start every day by asking yourself, why should somebody buy from me today? And if you can't answer that question with conviction, stop everything and fix that like right now, right? And then I'd say, one of the biggest points as well, point number 2, I'd say is here's the truth. A lot of the objections, they're not the end of the conversation. And this is what I had to learn extensively when I started selling real estate, right? They're the start of one, right? It's why somebody would actually work with you. When somebody says it's too expensive, they're not shutting you down. They're inviting you to prove the value. So the best closers see objections as opportunities to connect, educate, and show why their offer is a no-brainer. So a few things that's completely changed the game for me is, you got to go deep, and you don't have to be like this robot scripted version of yourself. You just need to be yourself and ask the questions that closed yourself on your product and ask the same ones to your client. What makes you say that? If price weren't the issue, would you move forward? Right? What's really holding you back? Right? You got to dig deeper and you'll find the real reason and the real solution for your client. Right? And I think that leads to the next thing, which everybody fails on this point. It's follow-up. Follow-up is everything. Fortune is in the persistence, right? 80% of your sales take place between the 5th and the 12th contact. So if you just let that sink in, most people quit after the 2nd or 3rd contact, right? So I follow up until I get a clear yes or no. And even then, the no just means not right now, right? So consistency and persistence separate the pros from the amateurs. You don't win by being the first to call. You win by leading or being the last one standing, right? So I'd say as an actual practical tip, like you have to have a follow-up system. For every lead, you must be, calls, emails, text, video messages. Like I've learned something from one of my mentors. Like I'll send them pizzas and take out 2 slices and, hey, I got the missing pieces to your business, right? Like stay in their world until they can't ignore you. You're so good they can't ignore you. Does that make sense?
It does. That there's these strategies that you can use so that way maybe if you're like thinking too straightforwardly and just like, oh, they told me no, or there's this objection, I guess I'll give up. It's like there's other ways around it. And this whole idea of being more persistent and with the follow-ups, like it's dawned on me a lot these last couple of years. Like whenever I open up my inbox and I'm just like, hey, I need to follow up with this person. And they might even be like a paid student, right? Sometimes you think about like sales, like, oh, they haven't bought from me. Man, even like I've got like these book coaching clients and I've got to be like, hey, do you have your words in your chapter, your photo? I need these things from you. And it takes several months. And when I go and I search someone's name, I'm like, there's been 108 emails back and forth with this person over the last 9 months, just like following up. Do you have it ready? And I think that it's easy to psych yourself out, isn't it? It's easy to say like, oh, I've got to do all this work. Who does this? Well, the people that do this are the ones that get to the end, right? They get to the sale. And it seems like from what you've been saying here, there's a lot of like habits, discipline, and thinking about these terms in a new way, like kind of resetting your expectations and saying like, well, hey, I've got to think these things through. I've got to ask questions and say like, well, if you get this no, well, why is that? Or let's explore that. And what I like a lot about what you just said here was you said something like every day you have to like re-ask yourself this question, why should someone buy from you? And so as far as like that, your answer to that, Sean, why should someone buy from you? What's your answer?
I love that. So there's a few things. Number one, why would they not buy from me? If I'm giving so much free value to somebody, right? I'm giving everything up front. Why would they not want to work with me? Right? On top of that, because I'm committed, I'm responsible, I'm ethical, I'm moral, I know I can solve their problem, right? Because I've solved the problem myself and for hundreds of other people, right? Like if I feel like a lot of the people, they'll sit there and think for thousands of years. It's like, look, what problem do you solve for people, right? And have you solved that problem for yourself? And if you have, then you must have the conviction, the discipline, the motivation, and the responsibility to go out there and give that same thing to somebody else because you know what they're struggling with. You knew what kept you up late at night. So like, I have that moral obligation. I'm so committed to helping them solve that problem. Why would they not want me to help them solve that problem?
I love it. You solved it. You have the commitment. You want to help them solve that problem. And so since this is the podcast, stories are a lot of fun on podcasts, right? Like sometimes you read an article or you go on LinkedIn or like read a book or audiobook, and that's learning. But here we're on a podcast where two guys hanging out, right? And stories are a lot of fun because you can say, well, hey, instead of like teaching you all these sales facts, here's a situation where I was in, and maybe you can relate to that. And I had these problems, and then I overcame that. So does anything come to mind here, Sean, as far as a fun story, just to kind of like make it less educational and more fun and disarm us a little bit?
Yeah, I think, a lot of my clients, it always starts with the mindset. Always starts with the mindset. So I have a client, for instance, and he's a young dude, right? And it's for a couple weeks, it's the same thing. I don't have any KPIs. I have nothing new. I haven't made my phone calls. And it's like, sometimes you got to sit there and be like, dude, all right, man, like, what are we going to do to change this? Right. The fun in this is when you see that breakthrough, like that light bulb go off, like that's why I do what I do. It's more fun to see somebody be like, oh my God, I've been stalling and wasting my time because I haven't done this because of that. So I feel like, when I broke through, it's like having a conversation. I like to say it's like when you're closing and when you're in sales, it's like, it's your brother, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle, right? Like, come on, man, what's stopping you from making this happen? Right. So I feel like the more you use like your authentic true self and the more you can actually like be confident and push somebody to do something, right? The easier that sale becomes because you've pushed yourself to do it. Like you can't ask somebody to do something that you're unwilling to do yourself. So I feel like, one of the best things I could share with you guys, it's like the motivations first. Because if you can't get right up here, I can't get them right in the external world. It just doesn't work because they're not sold on themselves. They're not sold on the product. They're not sold on why they do what they do. Because if they were, they'd have the numbers, they do the work, they'd have everything written on a silver platter for me to take a look at so that we can move forward in the journey on the process. Right. So the fun in that is like for a couple of weeks, it's like, dude, we're having the same conversation. Like, why did you decide to sign up for this? Why am I coaching you right now? Like, why am I training your sales team if you're not willing to take those actions? Right. So when they overcome that barrier, nothing's happened for 3 weeks. And then, on the fourth or fifth week, this guy comes back, he's like 20 years old. He's like, dude, I just closed a $20,000 client. And I'm like, what did you do? It's like, well, I made 10 phone calls. I'm like, 10 phone calls. And how many answered? 4 people. 4 people and you got 1 client. Okay. 40% answered and you got 1 to do business with you. Right. Did you have fun? Right. So like, that's why it's like, oh my God, it's so much fun to me. So like in the work that you're not doing is where the results that you want are, is where I'd want to share with the audience.
I love that. The work that you're not doing is where the results that you want are. And I can sense a lot of the Grant Cardone-ness coming off you, right? Like he says so many like little helpful things. Like he said at one time, like the thing that you're afraid of, that's what you should go and do. And it's like, it's kind of related to what you're saying, right? It's so easy for us to be in our comfort zone and stuck in our own thinking. And we probably do have enough information, right? We do have the knowledge, but sometimes we need a buddy like you to be like, kind of that weird mix, that weird blend, right? Of like sometimes the mode is, well, talk to me and I'll kind of be your therapist and commiserate with you. But sometimes it's also like you have to take action. And it's just this weird kind of attitude that like you need to have someone in your corner and someone to be encouraging, but also they won't do the work for you, right? When you have one of these these kind of coaching clients and like they're not making their phone calls and it's like they're the only ones that can do it. And if they did, then and they proceeded despite the fear, then you could then be proud of them and then look at what the results were and say, hey, you made this little easy quick win, let's continue that, let's multiply that. And so like what's the secret to breaking through in that way? If you have someone that if they're stuck in whatever situation, right, they won't make the phone calls, they won't take action, they won't build the business, only they can make the decision to do it. But how do we get them to make that decision?
I was going to say, telling the truth. Like you need somebody in your corner telling you the truth. It's not about what you want to hear. Like you need, like, I am brutally honest with a lot of people because I'm brutally honest with myself. And the only way that comes is by being fully committed to you and your mission and your purpose and your why. So like, I just tell them the truth, dude. You wrote out on your assessments what you wanted from this, program, and you're not getting there. And you're not getting there because of why. Like, let's figure out these roadblocks and let's start chiseling them down. Especially when it comes to building sales teams. Like a lot of the sales teams, they like it's the law of the lid, like John Maxwell says. If you're a 7, your team's going to be a 6 or a 7 and below. If you're not raising your lid and constantly learning, you're never going to get your team to grow. So if you're not telling them the truth and you're not calling them out on their bullshit, they're never going to grow. So you sometimes like I train a lot of jujitsu, right? White belt to black belt. Like I will never get a black belt unless I know what's coming. And the only way I know what's coming is by constantly training and practicing and getting choked out and armbarred and triangled, right? Like, and I think life's the same way. Like, we're not always tapping people out. We're not always tapping life out. Life will tap you out, and you got to get back up. You got to shake the rust off, and you got to get back on that mat, and you got to learn how to go out there and do it over again. Have a different transition, right? So I think the biggest breaking point is experiment. It's not working, change, right? And the only way you know what to change is by having at least some type of action to show you what result you're getting, right? Einstein said, doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result is insanity, right? So if you're taking no action and getting no result, well, obviously, to get a different result, you got to try something different. You got to be willing to go outside of your comfort zone and do something different. And I mean, personally, I'll say this not to brag, but humbly, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on my personal development, and they're the most impulse decisions I've made. But that's why I'm here today. That's why I've created the person I am. From those decisions, I've learned and grown so much in that time frame that I'm able to get on calls with people and push them in ways they've never been pushed before. Because I don't need their money. I don't need a new client. I have this abundant pipeline of people. So if they're not willing to make that change and willing to make that sacrifice with their business, then it's probably not the best option for them, right? Let alone me jumping on the call trying to help that person, right? It's like you can lead a horse to water. You can't make him drink the water, right? So I think it's really, to sum all of that up, it's telling the truth and really being the reflection of where they're trying to go. Right. If I can reflect, like they're obviously signing up, they want to build sales teams, they want to be a closer remotely, whatever it is. If you can show them that process and you can show them where they're at, right? Like a reflective mirror, it's easier for them to kind of say, oh, I see. Okay, let me change that. Let me try this a little differently. So with all of that being said, on top of telling the truth, it's what's going to change. Little incremental wins. I don't care if it's, hey, dude, I got up 10 minutes earlier this morning, right? That will go to, hey, I went to the gym for an extra 30 minutes. Hey, I got up and did a meditation for an extra 45 minutes this morning. Hey, I made 50 extra phone calls today. Like all those stem, and then that gets into closing more deals and helping more people because it builds confidence, right?
I
So
love it.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
a little bit of
So
background.
it's what's going to change? What can we do to like exceed the current baseline by a little bit? And it seems like I'm like trying to like decode and sort a lot of this in a good way. There's like the different like tools in the toolbox, right? Because you mentioned there's this like the big pictureness, the element of mentorship. Like, hey, here's what we're going to achieve. Here's the change we're going to apply in the future. There's the element you said there of like just starting, right? Just take some kind of action. Imagine what percentage of people are just like not even doing like making one phone call, right? Not even on one podcast, not doing one thing. And then in that kind of middle space there, like, cause there's like the big picture and there's just taking action. You're saying there's like the inputs and outputs, right? And you're saying, well, what kind of activity are you doing and what's the result? And if the results are what you want based on the activity, great, increase it, multiply. And if it's not getting what you want, then it's time to like reassess and experiment and just like change what you're doing. And so you said that you went on quite this trajectory, right? You went from being expelled to doing all the real estate stuff and the coaching clients and all the kind of self-help improvement, jujitsu, etc. Is there any particular like turning point that you feel like mentioning? Is there like something that like really surprised you in your journey?
What surprised me is those impulsive decisions that I made on the spot, 50 grand, 75 grand, some of the biggest investments that got me nothing up front at first were some of the biggest turning points, because I realized later on, months or years later, what it actually did and who I was around and who I got myself around and who got in my network. So I think a lot of the times, like, people are so scared of losing the money, but like, it's the person I became through, here's my card, here, swipe my card, here, take my card. Like, money, it's just a piece of paper. Like, I knew that I could get out of anything. I can sell myself out of it. Like, if I'm in $200,000 worth of debt, I'll get out of it because I put myself there. So taking full responsibility for your life and just staying fully committed, I think it's what's the target. Like, turning point for me was like when I actually had a plan. Like, I got so sick and tired of being sick and tired of getting told no. I was like, dude, you need to figure something out like yesterday. So that's where I sat down and started to figure out a plan. And, if you don't have it, like, the math is the path, one of my mentors says. If you don't have if you don't do the math, you don't have a path, right? So if you have this goal, right, even if it's not 100%, like you were saying, at least you get 2% more. It's better than doing -10, right? So just having a target in place and really, really steering the ship someplace, even if the goal doesn't, like, we always have this plan, but this plan doesn't go 100%. You always, something will happen. Like, if I go into a jiu-jitsu competition, let me explain it like this. It's easier to understand. And I'm going to go on that mat. I have a plan to take him down. I have a plan to do all the things I want to do. It's not going to happen that way. 95% of the time, it's not going to go down that way because he's going to do his plan. So then it's kind of, we're freestyling, and then we get back on plan once we get to the place on that mat, right? So it's like, you have to follow the plan till you can't follow the plan. It's like forcefully thinking through what you need to do and then doing it 100% of the time, knowing that it's not going to be the straight line, right? So I think one of the biggest things was just every time I failed or that plan didn't go accordingly, I would just shape. I would step back. Hey, where do I need to go from here? Oh, I fell off the mountain. Let's get back up and climb this way. Right. So it's just adjusting, and constantly moving forward, never having that victim mindset, just constantly slingshotting forward, because that step back you took will launch you 10 steps forward.
I think that's very wise. So we need to be working on our mental game and to be networking with people and to have a plan, even knowing that the reality will not match up to the plan, but that's still no excuse for having no plan, right? If you have no plan, you'll be even more off course. And it's kind of like when I was in college, they said, like, if you were going to program Google Maps, right? If you can say start point, finish point, then there's kind of like the city streets part where it's kind of unpredictable, but then you get on the freeway, on the highway, and then you're just a straight shot. And then you get off the highway, and then there's a little bit of navigating. And it's like, that's kind of what came to mind when you're mentioning about how, like, well, you make this goal, you make this plan, and some of it will work out, right? And even the things that you didn't expect to work will work, and then the things that you counted on, then they don't work. And then at some point with the replanning and the strategizing, then it ends up getting you to where you need to go. You hear that only 3% of people have written goals, which is like insane, but also I sort of believe it, right? And so that's a way to kind of set ourselves apart, and to, as you said, as we started here, to revisit those goals and to like get them embedded and to have that team in place, have the accountability partner, so that way it's not just you and it's not a one-time event. It's something that you continually redo and revisit. And since we're in these last few minutes here, I want to make sure we cover the bases, Sean, and that we have the focus on you and what excites you and what people should know about you. So in our conversation here, is there like a missing, hidden, invisible question that I should be asking you, but I just don't know to ask?
Yeah, I would say know thyself. Know thyself, be thyself. Like, you are your thoughts. You are the people you surround yourself with. I feel this is a huge mental game for me. It's me against me. It's me against nobody else. Don't compare your chapter 5 to somebody's chapter 40. I think the question everybody should be asking is, who am I? where am I? Where am I going? What's my life purpose? And, until you have a very specific strategic way of answering those questions to you, not to anybody else, you'll start to get a really clear understanding of all those things. So I think know thyself is one of the biggest things, whatever you guys believe in, God, universe, whatever it is. But I think that's one of the biggest things that has definitely also helped me on the journey. Just, you got to have faith. You got to understand. You have to know thyself.
Know thyself, who you should be, who you're becoming, where you're headed. And speaking to that, tell us about yourself and your company. I know you have the website coming soon, you have the Instagram page, but what do you want to get attention on? Where should people go? And what's in the future for you?
I love that. Yeah. So, I live in San Diego. I have the house up here in Mount Shasta. What I focus on is I help businesses basically increase their sales by implementing a strategic sales process, going over their scripts, their dialogues, hiring salespeople, maybe firing salespeople, coming in as a fractionalized chief sales officer. I work with individual, salespeople. I work with teams. I work with companies. Um, you know, I have sales funnels all built up. The website's more going to be a broader sense of like what the actual company mission is. So I'm going to take my real estate company and I'm going to merge them with my sales training company, because I started in real estate sales as a realtor. So my niche was real estate agents and brokers and teams. And then I moved on to, more building sales teams for tech companies, software, real estate funds. And it's just my passion, because I think that I treat it like jujitsu. I came into the sales game as a white belt and I got choked out. I got, I got armbarred, I got heel hooked, and it was not fun for months. And I didn't know what it took to get deals closed. I didn't know what it took to really help somebody out, because I was all in it for me and the money. Like Zig Ziglar, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll eventually get what you want. So if you put the client first and you come from a place of contribution, you will always get what you want out of the deal. So if you come from this place of abundance and, you're helping people and you're serving them and you're providing solutions, that does not go unnoticed. That does not only build confidence, the universe looks at that, they see it, and you're going to be able to, you'll be paid tenfold from what you're giving out. So what you put out is what you get back, is what I highly believe in. What's in the future? I want to be the biggest sales organization in the world. It's going to take a lot of work. We're on our way. I work with the best in the world so far. And I'm building a team right now. And from going from being a realtor to doing B2B, it's a completely different animal, and I love it. And then on top of that, I'm getting into business acquisitions, because my father's a big plumber back in Philly for 40 years. So I'm looking to acquire home service companies. So that's one of the things that I'm getting into right now, which is in the future, we're going to have this big bundled umbrella where it'll have real estate, home services, title, escrow, sales, training. So that's a little bit of background and future telling. Foreshadowing.
Very cool. You're headed for world domination. Don't forget to squeeze at least 15 minutes of sleep in there, at least at some point. And so that Instagram page is Sean.Ginsburg. That's first name SEAN GINSBURG. And what sort of person should be reaching out and contact you? What's your ideal client, as they say?
Ideal client is somebody that is stuck in a position where you have a sales process, right? You're taking them through the sales process, but you don't know how to keep metrics. Your sales process is broken, meaning you can't figure out why they're not closing, right? Or you have a sales team and your team is just not closing deals. You're trying to get to 500,000 a month and you guys are stuck at 350, 375, and you can't figure out why, right? I can come in there and I know exactly what your problems are. I know exactly why your salespeople are not doing what they should be doing. I was one of those salespeople when I first started, right? But it's really the facts, the mistakes, the systems, the processes. So any business under $1 million, it's typically a sales process. Any business over $1 million, it's going to be systems and processes. So I still take one-on-ones for individual salespeople, so long as you already are making money in the business, right? And you want to take your $20,000 or $30,000 a month income to 60 or 100. It's very simple. It's very easy. You just need to do a very, very minor things. And it's probably the follow-up. I can give you 365 days of follow-up content that I guarantee would increase the sales by 30% in less than 90 days, period. As far as sales teams, if you're doing anywhere from $1 million to $5 million is probably where the sweet spot I love to work in, because usually there's a couple rotten apples on the sales team that are not willing to do a little bit more work to make a little bit more money and help more people. And the personal, professional, and financial goals are not aligned with the company's mission, right, and core values, and the company's personal, professional, and financial goals, which we can kind of reverse engineer that, break that down, and show you how to align that, and then have the onboarding process and bring the right people in that will create that environment and that culture for the actual organization.
Well, I love your mindset. I love your thought process here as far as the problem solving and saying, well, hey, here's what you have in place, and you're clogged up a little bit, right? Maybe you're not following up enough. Maybe you have some of those bad apples. And in a situation like yours, you see so many things, you can take a look at it and say, hey, here's where we need to do less of this, more of this, fix up this, improve our numbers, and get to that next level, which is what it's all about. And so what should someone do? Are you comfortable with someone goes to your Instagram, clicks on send a message, and just starts to chat?
Yeah. So here's what I would say to do right now. Like, take a look at your pipeline, whether it's finding leads you're neglecting, businesses you're neglecting, like like whichever ones you're telling yourself you didn't call, they're not worth it, they don't have the money, call them, follow up, reignite that conversation, ask yourself, like, what's the next step you've been avoiding? Maybe it's reaching out to, maybe it's building a better script, reaching out to that person, closing yourself on value, whatever it is. Stop overthinking it, start acting. Action is the only way forward. I'd say if you're ready to level up and master the art of closing and or having like an elite, like great sales team, just DM me the word closer on my Instagram and let's talk how I can help you reverse engineer what that would look like based on your target. Because I don't do anything without understanding what the target is. So if I can help you achieve the target, I'll be upfront with you. But if I can't, I'll just be upfront with you. I'll just be honest, right? But let's take action. Don't wait. Momentum does not last long. If it comes to mind, take action now. Like, don't think about it, do it now. Like, that's one of the biggest things that I've learned from one of my mentors, and that's actually helped me so much. Like, the more you put thought into something, the more like stuff just kind of comes and you kind of forget about that thing, which then happens on your sales calls, right? I could get really deep into that. I won't right now, but it's a reflection, right? So what
But
you
the
put in,
lesson
what
is,
you get back.
and I think the lesson I'm getting to you is just to take action. Like I heard something once where they say, like, if you don't write it down, you'll forget it in 45 seconds. And so like we need to be doing those things and giving it attention where it deserves. And you've given us so much to think about, Mr. Sean. So it's time to go to Instagram, Sean.Ginsburg, and send the word closer and start having that conversation. And they call it a qualified lead, where you need to know what your target is first before messaging him. But once you do know what that target, what that goal is, then talk to Sean about it. You have a fun conversation and talk about some possibilities, some next steps. And as we are wrapping up, winding down our conversation here, Sean, it's time to put you on the spot a little bit, where I ask my guest about a fun or interesting or helpful quote or lesson that has served them in life or in business. So what comes to mind for you to help us out as far as a quote or lesson?
All that I know is that I know nothing. And I fear the man that practiced one kick 10,000 times, not the man that practiced 10,000 kicks one time. The more that I know nothing, the more opportunities seem to come to me. The more that I practice that one kick 10,000 times, the more I am confident in my ability to kick, to push, to move forward.
Bruce Lee.
And
Very cool. Well, very nice meeting you, Mr. Sean Ginsburg, educating us, entertaining us, informing us. If you need to get your sales system dialed in, fixed up, unclogged to the next level, Sean Ginsburg is your man. Go to Instagram.com/Sean.Ginsburg. Send him that message. Let us know how it worked out. And very nice meeting with you today, Mr. Sean.
Stay blessed. Happy holidays. Take care. Stay great. It's the only thing that pays.